Hi, I'm Cheryl Kagan, very proud to be the senator for Gaithersburg and Rockville. Welcome to this week's edition of Kibbitzing with Kagan, brief conversations with people I find fascinating. Today's very special guest is my longtime friend and now colleague, Delegate Ryan Spiegel. Delegate Ryan, thank you so much for taking the time to chat today.
Thank you so much for having me, Senator.
Absolutely. So there's so much I want folks to know about you because you are, as you have been named, the baby delegate. So, but you have a very long, broad, deep, and impressive background. So let's start at the beginning. You grew up in Baltimore County in Pikesville. You went to Jewish day school. You went to University of Maryland for undergrad. You went to Stanford for law school. Came back to Maryland. Tell us something that was important and formative that inspired you to a whole lifetime of career in public service.
Well, like a lot of folks in politics and in government, I was one of those kids who was running for class president in third grade. I think I have always been a bit of a true believer. I read stories about John Kennedy and Martin Luther King. I read stories about other leaders and activists throughout American history, and I thought I want to do something to contribute to the public good. So I was always kind of interested in using that avenue. There's lots of different ways, of course, to serve, as you know.
Mhm.
Nonprofits, you can mentor somebody one-on-one. You can make generous donations if you're in the private sector. But for me, it was just kind of always something that felt like a little bit of a calling.
Mhm.
And I studied journalism in undergrad and I
Yes.
went to law school, as you noted. But I always felt that those were academic pursuits and practical pursuits that were sort of in a bit of a nexus with the opportunity to pursue public service in a couple of different ways. I wasn't sure exactly how I was going to do it. And I don't want to jump the gun on my story arc here,
Yes.
but as you mentioned, I have been involved for a long time. And
Yes.
as you well know, my very first race for public office was way back in 2006.
We are going to get to
We'll
that.
get there.
Okay. So let's talk
Like
about,
I think like a lot of folks, I just wanted to make the point that my path wasn't always predictable,
yeah.
but it was fascinating how it ended up unfolding.
Yes. So you use your law degree both in private practice as well as in public service. Talk about how those compete ever or complement each other.
I think they complement each other very well. I've been in private practice as an attorney for 22 years now. Over the course of my private sector career, I've been in a few different law firms.
Mhm.
I think that you don't certainly don't need to have a law degree to be in public service and elective office. As you know, there are
Right.
lots of very sharp folks who understand legislating and bring different perspectives to that job, which is important. We have a citizen legislature for a
Mhm.
reason. But I
Mhm.
do think it gives you a little bit of an added perspective and background in terms of understanding unintended consequences of legislative drafting or constitutional principles that might apply to a bill or asking some of those types of questions in hearings. And so I've tried to bring that to bear as well. I would say the only time that they conflict, my private sector job as a lawyer and my work as a public servant, is when there's either a direct conflict of interest. Maybe my law firm has a client
Mhm.
who happens to also be lobbying the government on some issue, in which case I have to recuse myself, of course, and we
Yes.
are very careful to follow those rules. And in terms of time and attention, right? For any citizen legislator who also has a demanding other job,
Sure.
it's about balancing priorities.
So let's shift to your service in Gaithersburg, and we have a lot to cover. You served on the Gaithersburg City Council. You were elected in 2007 and served until you were appointed to the House. Um, you worked on a lot of issues, but you are especially proud of a couple of them. Why don't you share?
Sure. As you can imagine, over the course of 16 years, you deal with a lot of stuff, economic development, land use and zoning, and so many other different things in between. I would say the one sort of signature program that I am proudest of is a financial literacy and financial empowerment program that we started almost 20 years ago. I went to a conference of the National League of Cities in
Mhm.
Orlando in 2008, and I heard about a couple of cities that were starting to do this, and I thought this is something we should also be a leader in Gaithersburg, because it's a good thing to give someone a fish. We've all heard the old adage, but
Yeah.
it's better to help them learn how to fish for themselves. And I think it has such great ripple effects throughout the economy and throughout the community to help empower folks, particularly those who come from underrepresented and underserved communities, and how to build generational wealth, in how
Hmm.
to build financial stability. So we started small with a program called Bank on Gaithersburg.
Hmm.
And over the years, it evolved into something that we now call the Financial Empowerment Center, which
Yep.
provides those coaching services and has really helped hundreds of people. And the hope is one day we might even be able to expand it statewide.
Statewide. All right. So as the punster, I really have to say that even though you heard about this concept in Orlando, it was no Mickey Mouse idea.
Ah,
Sorry, had to.
well done.
Um,
Well done.
you were active while you served in Gaithersburg. You were very active in the Maryland Municipal League, and you served on the legislative. You were the president of the Montgomery County chapter, and then ultimately became statewide president, and then emeritus and stuff. What did you learn from a perspective outside of Gaithersburg?
Yeah, it was a great opportunity to learn to partner with folks from such diverse communities, right? The Maryland Municipal League represents about 160 cities and towns across the state of Maryland. Some of them are large urban communities, some of them are small rural communities in Western Mountain Maryland or on the Eastern Shore. Some are red, some are purple, some are blue in their politics. And you've got to come together and find the common ground to advocate for the priorities that impact all of those different types of communities.
Hmm.
You've got to build relationships with folks and find ways to connect on a personal level so that you can build trust.
Yes.
And I think I learned a lot about all of that in the experience of working in the municipal league. And I think also I learned a little bit about what approaches are effective to influence policy in Annapolis and what approaches are not effective. And I like to think I brought some of that experience with me to the General Assembly when I joined the House of Delegates as well.
Yes. So you referenced having lost a race. So you've won more than you've lost, but you did run for
So far, yes.
delegate and you also ran for county council. What's something that you've learned from a race that you've lost?
One of the things that I like to talk about learning is that if you don't become bitter, if you understand that running is its own learning experience and has its own long-term value in terms of putting yourself out there in the community, building a reputation, building relationships throughout a community, that is not something of value that goes away just because you lose an election.
Hmm.
That is a long-term investment for yourself, for your community. And if you hold your head up high, even if you lose the election, if you left it all out on the field, if you worked hard and you did things right, those
Hmm.
relationships and that goodwill stays.
Yes.
You can rely on it to build upon it for future races or for other future endeavors in business or volunteering or other things that you might want to do. And I think that that's a really important lesson. And maybe I'm a little biased because of my own experience, but I like to think that folks who have lost at least one race, uh, bringing that experience
Mm.
to the job once you finally win also helps you come in with a little bit of a different perspective on the job. And no disrespect to those who have won every single race that they have run. Good for you. I'm a little
Yeah.
jealous,
Right.
but I think it adds a different perspective, a different sense of why you're there.
Hmm.
And so I think, it adds to the communal effort to serve if you've got a mix of
Right.
folks with those backgrounds in a legislature.
Right. Well, let's talk about you coming to the legislature. Longtime delegate Kumar Barve, who was first elected in 1990, was appointed by Governor Wes Moore to serve on the Public Service Commission, creating a vacancy. And while so many of our colleagues have been appointed, District 17 was the last holdout, I think, that had only elected members of our team. But we now had a vacancy, and there was a hotly contested race. You won narrowly, approval by the Democratic Central Committee, and were appointed and started service on July 6, 23. So talk about the transition, talk about that process, the appointments process, since we've been trying to change that in our Constitution.
Well, as you know, I support the changes that you have been advocating for, and our colleague Delegate Linda Foley and others have been advocating for to democratize that process. But it's the process we're stuck with for now.
Yes.
It was very intense because the process from start to finish is about 1 month. And so from the time a vacancy is formally announced to the time you have to apply to interviewing and meeting with all the different central committee members, and in our case in Montgomery County, it's about 24 different people on a very
Hmm.
large central committee, and then having public forums and collecting letters of support. It's a very intense process over the course of 30 days, and then
Yes.
the final decision within that 30 days. So that was a lot, but once you decide to go in, you go in. As I said, you leave it all on the field.
Yep.
And it was a good learning experience for me
Yes.
in terms of understanding where different constituencies within our own Montgomery County Democratic Party are on a lot of different issues.
Sure.
I don't think every member of our central committee necessarily reflects where the District 17 public might be on certain issues, and you're going to
Agreed.
have to maneuver that a little bit as well.
So yes, amen to all of that. What was the biggest surprise in the transition from nonpartisan municipal
Yeah.
government to partisan state legislature, the House of Delegates?
I should also say, by the way, I was fortunate that the timing for my appointment was in the summer.
Yes.
So I had basically half a year to ease
Mhm.
myself into the job before another legislative session was
Yes.
starting. So that
Yes.
was good. But I would say there are a number of obvious differences. I think obviously dealing with a much larger legislative body is a
Mm-hmm.
different animal than
Hmm.
a being on a city council with 5 council members. So
Yes.
when I was one of 5, I only had to convince 2 colleagues
Yes.
to do something, and we'd have a majority. I think also, as
For
you know,
those who are listening or watching may not know, the Maryland House of Delegates is 141 members. The Senate is 47, so 188 total. It's larger than many other states,
yeah.
but yeah, go ahead, keep going.
Yeah, and then of course, the vast majority of municipal governments in Maryland are nonpartisan.
Hmm.
So we don't run in primaries. We don't have a D or an R next to our name as a member of a city council or a town council. Of
Right.
course, most members of the public kind of know where we are personally.
Hmm.
But I think that was certainly a big difference. I've been a avid Democrat all my life, but
Hmm.
approaching that role a little bit differently now in the General Assembly, where we have a majority and a minority party, and it's sort of much
Sure.
more of a conscious awareness of the party structures as
Yeah.
well. And I think also the hierarchy, if I could call it that, without trying to be
Leadership. Yeah.
yeah, the structure. I'm not just talking
Hmm.
about the leadership. I'm talking about sort of the structure of the General Assembly, the
Hmm.
committees, the subcommittees, the chair
Hmm.
positions,
Hmm.
the whip positions. All of that doesn't really exist. It's sort of more of a
Yes.
horizontal structure,
Yes.
municipal government. So that was a bit of an adjustment as well.
Right. Anything surprise you?
Not really, to be honest with you.
Okay.
Maybe it's because I just spent a lot of time in Annapolis or a lot of time
Sure.
in government before I got there. No major surprises yet.
Okay, yes. So the speaker appointed you to the Appropriations Committee, which is a plum and very exciting for our district to have you in the room where it happens, where budget decisions are being made and all that. What have been some of the battles you fought on budgets in these tough times? You've now had 2 years there, last year, which was challenging, but this year, which was insanely challenging.
Yeah, I mean, the big battle this year was over what to cut. We spent really the entire time in the General Assembly session as an appropriations committee digging through binders and binders of state agency budgets. And for those who don't know, every year during the legislative session, in addition to all of the hearings on bills that members introduce,
Hmm.
the Appropriations Committee in the House and the Budget and Taxation Committee in the Senate
Hmm.
have dozens of hearings on the budgets that are proposed by the administration for different agencies and
Hmm.
sub-agencies and departments,
Hmm.
comb through in great detail.
Hmm.
And this year in particular, we were looking for significant chunks to cut. and
Yes,
trying to find, using our accounting skills and using our research skills, well, is there some obscure or unused pot of money here or there in this agency? And then when we did find some, we had some very tough conversations about, well, this fund over here was intended for some environmental remediation program, or this fund over here was intended for local public safety grants. Maybe it's not being fully utilized. Should we cut half of it? Should we cut all of it? Those were very tough conversations.
yes,
And I'll also add, I'm constantly trying to be vigilant about preserving and protecting funding for local governments,
of
given my
course.
background and my
Yes.
appreciation for their need for funding that comes from the state.
So I'm looking through all the notes and all the questions I wanted to ask of you. So you are still new to this, but you have also already had some accomplishments. What are you proudest of so far? What are your priorities?
I have tried to focus on legislation that I think will help those who are in vulnerable communities. And I know a lot of us do a lot on that front. But two bills that I did finally get passed this year that I'm very excited about, my first two bills to pass and be signed by the governor.
Okay.
One provides consistent funding for resources for the deaf and hard of hearing community.
Hmm.
It's a bill that provides long-term guaranteed funding for a resource called the Deaf Culture Digital Library, which is a
Hmm.
first of its kind resource that Maryland has, and hopefully other states will follow. And a second bill that was signed by the governor, which will make it easier for public servants within the state of Maryland to learn about and apply for a federal program that forgives the loans, the student loans of public servants. It's a complicated federal program. As
Yes.
of today, it still
I
exists
was
under
just going to
federal
say,
law.
yeah, let's
And
timestamp this. Who knows what
yeah,
happens 2 hours from now?
and hopefully
Yes.
it will continue to exist.
Yes.
But it's a great program that helps us attract and retain public servants and gives them a benefit that, frankly, they deserve for
Yes.
choosing to spend a career either in
Yes.
state or local government or in the nonprofit sector, because those folks are also eligible.
Good.
And so this will make it easier for those folks to apply for that loan forgiveness.
So since you referenced the federal government, briefly tell us what is one, maybe two things that you think are among the most egregious actions of the Trump, or as I used to call it, the Trump-Musk administration.
Well, certainly the targeting of immigrants in this indiscriminate, cruel, and often unlawful way that also undermines due process immediately jumps to mind. The
Hmm.
targeting of our transgender community as well.
Hmm.
But I'm also going to mention something that I think has maybe gotten a little less attention, but maybe as a lawyer, I'm a little biased about this. The executive orders that have targeted law firms really upset me
Oh, horrible.
because
Hmm.
if you connect the dots, even though you're talking about big, wealthy law firms,
Sure.
some of the biggest in the country, if you connect the dots, lawyers play such a critical role in our democracy,
Hmm.
and the law and the institutions of law and the judicial system can't operate without lawyers having the freedom to operate. That's why
Yeah.
you see in the Constitution multiple references to the right to counsel, and
Hmm.
that's connected also to freedom of speech and the right to petition your government. And
Yes.
so when law firms start getting under the thumb of a dare I say authoritarian style
Yeah.
leadership, that really concerns me because I don't
Sure.
know if that's like a canary in the coal mine type situation.
Yes. All right. Well, staying on that topic of lawyering, are an adjunct assistant professor at Georgetown University. You've done that for a few years now. What do you like best about that? Just give us a couple of thoughts.
I think, like any teacher in any teaching environment, watching a student get the aha moment is
Mm.
fantastic, fabulous, and they don't come that often, especially when you're dealing with heady and complicated material. But a couple of times a semester, I'll have a student who gets really excited, who comes to me and is like, "This is great," and also doing some of the practical clinical type lessons. We do a mock negotiation in my class, which the students
Nice.
absolutely love and
Sure.
always talk about. Interestingly, I don't actually teach in the law school or the undergrad program. I teach in the med school at Georgetown. But what
Amazing.
I'm teaching those students is some basic legal concepts about intellectual property law that they're probably going to need
Mm,
as they go forward to develop medical technologies.
amazing. Okay. Well, one last question on lawyering. Uh, for like 15 years plus, you've been doing pro bono, which means not paid for, which means on your own time as a volunteer, pro bono work on behalf of a death row inmate. Tell us that story.
Yeah, it's actually been it's probably over 20 years now. And I got involved at my first law firm as a junior associate. The firm had taken on this case in conjunction with the Equal Justice Initiative, which is a
Mhm,
very well-known nonprofit organization that advocates for criminal justice reform in the Alabama area.
mhm,
And my client is a man who we believe the evidence shows overwhelmingly is intellectually disabled.
mhm,
He's African American. He was arrested for a carjacking that went wrong.
mhm.
It turns out that the victim was an undercover federal DEA agent who was
Oh,
killed during that carjacking. He was prosecuted and convicted by the federal government and given life in prison. The state of Alabama decided to prosecute him all over again under
mm,
state law
mm,
solely for the purpose of seeking the death penalty.
mm,
He was just barely 18 or 19 when this happened. And so all of the arguments about somebody who is intellectually disabled should not be
mhm,
eligible for the death penalty, somebody who is young at the time of a crime should not
mhm,
be eligible for
mhm,
the death penalty. We're making all these arguments and all of these other very strange procedural, bizarre, problematic things that happened over the course of his case, almost like a sort of a Kafka novel.
wow.
An
What's
all-white jury
oh,
for a black defendant.
mm,
And in the end, he was given a capital sentence. But for the last 20 years, we've been appealing up and down through the state and federal
mm.
appellate courts
So
to
his
make
case
various
is still
arguments.
pending, still
We
active.
exhausted his appeals a couple years ago at the U.S. Supreme Court. We've been trying to come up with a couple of new arguments that we can revive since then. But at this point now, it's sort of a waiting and hoping game. But
Mm,
he has not been put on the list yet to schedule an execution. So,
wow. Okay. Well, on a happier note,
yeah.
let's talk briefly about the homeowners association work that you and I have done together. Condos and Homeowners Association, when I was in the House of Delegates, my first term, I worked on those issues and I passed a couple of bills. It took 4 years, but it is a passion of mine that dates back to the 90s. Tell us a story. What was the problem, and how does our legislation that I sponsored and the governor just signed into law last week, how does that help fix it?
Yeah, well, it began for me when I was on the city council and I had residents come to me and say they were having problems with their HOA and condo boards. There were a handful of boards and associations that were not really doing the right thing to protect the rights and the um, the rules in their communities and the rights of unit owners. And so we looked into what we could do at the local level. And it turned out that the city of Gaithersburg was the only jurisdiction in Montgomery County that had not opted into a county program
Hmm.
that was supposed to make it easier to resolve disputes between association boards and unit owners. And we worked really hard to convince my colleagues that we should opt in. We finally did opt in, and then there was some major turnover at that county commission, and it stopped being effective.
Right.
Now, after all that, we were sort of stuck with the situation where we were trying to make it better for our residents, and we weren't able to do it. Then I joined the General Assembly, and you and I had some conversations with
Mhm.
Councilmember Neil Harris and others.
Yeah.
And I put forth a local bill, which would have applied only to Montgomery County. You put forth a statewide bill, and I think we attacked it from both
Yes.
sides to up the chances of something passing.
Got it done.
And you got it done. And so
Yay.
we have a statewide additional protections for folks
Yes.
who live in
Better
HOA.
transparency, fairer elections, more accountability. I think it was a good, prudent bill. So shout out to Council Member Neil Harris and to you for that.
Thank you.
Um, Delegate Spiegel, you are a husband and a father of two beautiful, smart children. A lot of times people only ask this of women, which I find super offensive. Talk about work-life balance with your job, your legislating, your political stuff, and your family. How do you do it?
It's really hard, but I find that if you cut sleep out of your schedule, you have more hours in the day. Look, a lot of us in this world of public service are balancing a lot of different priorities and responsibilities. So I'm certainly not the only one. It is hard, but if you believe in it, you can do it. If you have a family that's supportive of your effort to do it and understanding, that helps. In my case, my kids were born after I was already on the city council, so they've never known dad in any
Yes.
other capacity than as an elected official,
Yep.
which I think makes it a little bit easier for them to digest the things that I have to do. But they're a little bit older now, so I think for me it actually worked out well because as a local official, I was able to be home all the time. And
Hmm.
now that they're a little older, they're getting into their teen years, they're less interested in hanging out with their parents anyway.
Right.
So when I have to go to Annapolis for 3 months a year, maybe they don't miss me quite as much. Who knows?
Right.
But it's still a challenge. And I still say a lot of times to community groups who have some big event, look, family always comes first. If I have
Hmm.
a kid who's graduating from class or making a presentation or has a
Right.
school concert that night, I'm going to that.
Absolutely. Good
And
for
I think
you.
most people understand that.
Sure. You went to a Jewish day school, and like me, you are active in your synagogue. How does your Judaism guide or inspire you?
I think it inspires me a lot. It's a big driver of my identity and my desire to serve. Understanding the sort of basic precept that you learn in Jewish faith of loving your neighbor, of welcoming in the stranger, of doing good deeds and kindness, and of the concept of trying to help fix the world,
Hmm.
tikkun olam,
Hmm.
as it's known in Hebrew.
Hmm.
And for me, that's a big driver. And I talked earlier about being a true believer and a sort of idealist when it comes to public service, because in my mind, I connect all of those concepts to what we're trying to do. Those of us, the vast majority of us in public service who are doing it for the right reasons and who are working hard. I also think of a phrase from the Bible, tzedek, tzedek tirdof,
Hmm.
which in English means either justice or righteousness, depending on how you translate it. Justice, justice, you shall pursue.
Yes.
And that's always been a big inspiration for me. I know that Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg actually had that biblical quote hanging on her wall when she served in the Supreme Court.
Nice. We're going to start to wrap up. You have won a lot of awards and a lot of recognition. Which one is most meaningful to you?
Ah, geez. That's a very flattering question. Thank you. It's important for us to remember to be grateful because we're so busy doing all this work.
Yes.
Um, I would say the Maryland Municipal League Lifetime Achievement Award, which I got in 2023, was a really nice moment. My mom was in the audience. The governor and the lieutenant governor were there. I got a lovely cheering standing ovation from all the mayors and
No.
council members around the state. It was kind of a funny moment because we were joking about the fact that I was, in my early 40s when I won a Lifetime Achievement Award. And I hope I haven't peaked too early. But it was really lovely. And that's such a tight-knit community and a community that I feel still very, very close with, the Maryland Municipal family. And
Yeah.
so that was a really nice award.
I actually should have worn my municipal superstar pin for this, which I did not do. But you and I were among the, what, five legislators out of 188 who were just named municipal champions. It's a new title.
You
Uh,
think they're going to make a new pin to
I
add to the
don't
municipal
know.
superstar? You can have
I
a
don't.
municipal champion pin. I'd wear that.
That totally that. Yeah. Um, uh, Delegate Ryan Spiegel, talk about your plans for 2026. It's an election year.
Oh, well, I don't know if I'm breaking news here,
You
but
are breaking news.
I do plan to run for, I don't want to say re-election because I was, of course, appointed to this position, but I'm going to run for election to a full term to the House of Delegates. And I'm looking forward to making a formal announcement in the coming days with those who will also be running, and very excited about that. For me, I think it's not a question. I've only spent a few years sort of settling into this job, and in order to do it right, I need more time to build up experience, influence, continue to build relationships that I've already been working on in Annapolis. And I think just 2 or 3 years there isn't enough to do that. So I feel like I've been doing a good job. I hope the public
Absolutely.
agrees and the voters agree. But yes, I fully plan to run for a full 4-year term in the House.
Perfect. Yay. Um, I think I'm going to skip over some of my other questions, although, yeah, let's move on. It is time, Delegate Ryan Spiegel, for the Fast Five.
Okay.
5 quick questions, 5 quick answers. First off, question number one. What is your favorite movie of all time?
From an artistic and technical perspective, it's Citizen Kane. From an
Mhm.
entertainment value perspective, it's any cheesy 1980s action comedy or Michael Bay movie.
Example, name one.
Oh,
I don't know Michael Bay. Sorry.
Michael Bay. He did The Rock. He did
Okay.
Armageddon.
Okay.
He did Bad Boys.
Okay. 3 movies I've not seen. Okay.
Oh,
Question number two. What is some advice you would give to a young person thinking about a career in public service or politics?
one piece of advice that I give that I think might be a little different than some others is think carefully about whether you really want to go to law school. A lot of folks who are interested in public service assume that
Hmm.
that's the right path, and it is for some, but not for everybody. And given the difficulty of getting into law school, the difficulty of going through law school, and the huge loans that people
Paying
take
for it.
out,
Right.
I'm
Right.
still paying 22 years out of law school. I'm still paying off my loans. Okay.
Holy cripes.
And so I think, if you really want to do public service,
Yes.
but not really want to practice law,
Right.
get a master's,
Yep.
PhD in public administration, or public policy. Those are some other alternatives that you should think about.
That is great advice. I actually was always encouraged to go to law school. I did take the entrance exam, the LSAT exam, did well, and ultimately I didn't want to sit in a library for 3 more years and have the debt and all that. So same thing. Question three: what is something the most adventurous thing you've ever done, and would you do it again?
Bungee jumping? I don't know.
Have you?
I would do it again. Yeah.
Where did you do it?
In Florida.
Wow. Okay, that's
Long time
fun.
ago, long time
Okay,
ago with family. But I've been fortunate to have a lot of fun adventures in life. I This is for another interview because we don't have time, but
right.
I have driven a vehicle in the presidential motorcade. Yeah,
Whoa.
great
Okay,
story,
that is
but it
another time.
takes too
That's
long to tell that
cool.
story. We don't have
Okay.
enough time, but I will come back if you'd like, and I will be happily tell that story.
Amazing.
I have been struck by lightning. So that is not something I would like to do again, but that was quite
Wow.
adventurous.
Holy cripes. Okay, so you know that my friend Carl Henn,
Yeah. Yeah.
former Rockville activist, was struck by lightning during a freak thunderstorm and later died when 911 failed. And that's what led to my 11-year and ongoing journey
Yeah.
on leading on 911. So
That's
wow,
right.
I'm
Yeah.
glad you survived.
Yeah.
Um, if you could, question four, if you could meet any historical figure, whom would you choose?
Wow. Any historical figure?
Any.
Gandhi.
Okay. One sentence, why?
Well, as much as we attribute nonviolent civil rights movements to leaders in American history, which is justified, I think from my studies that he was really sort of one of the first to set the stage in the world for the modern nonviolent civil rights movement, and the things he did were really quite incredible. So I think it would be great to speak to him.
Amazing. Question, not exactly one sentence, but question number five, the question that I ask every one of my guests. Delegate Ryan Spiegel, what is your hidden secret superpower? What is a skill
Other
or
than being able
talent
to
you
survive a
have?
lightning strike,
Yeah, right. What is something
um,
you're really good at? Yep.
only one thing. Sheesh. I have an ability to quickly charm dogs and babies. I am great at connecting with them. The adults I still have issues with sometimes, but dogs and babies love me. I also am amazing on the dance floor at a wedding or a bar mitzvah, especially after I've had a couple of drinks.
That's hilarious. All right. Well, Delegate, thank you for your leadership, your commitment to public service, for all that you do, and for your partnership in District 17. You've been a wonderful addition to the team. And while we adored Kumar, we are so happy that you're with us on this team because I think that Delegate Palakovich Carr, Delegate Joe Vogel, Delegate Ryan Spiegel, and I just kick butt together and get things done. So thank you. And thank you for taking time to chat.
And let me take the opportunity to thank you for your longtime friendship, partnership, mentorship. And it's been an absolute thrill to work with you in this relatively still new partnership in our District 17 legislative team. And I look forward to continuing on it because it's been great.
Definitely. See you soon. Take care.
Yeah.